When you retire, you may get a chance to go to football heaven. This is football heaven.
Hey guys, welcome to The Mission. I'm your host, Jameer Howardson, and we're so happy that you've been joining us for this week long of NFL draft content that we're bringing to you, that we're leading up to our live show this coming Thursday night, where we're going to kick things off from 6 to 8 o'clock, where we're going to go live on the Pro Football Hall of Fame social media platforms and bring you all of the rich content from some of our Pro Football Hall of Famers and their draft experiences. Well, today joining us is a former NFL legend from the Cincinnati Bengals. He was drafted in the 6th round of the 2001 NFL Draft out of Oregon State. Ladies and gentlemen, these days you can catch him on Fox Sports Net, Mr. TJ Houshmandzadeh. TJ, welcome to The Mission, sir.
How you doing, man? Glad to be with you.
Man, I'm excited. I want to thank you very much for giving us your time, man. I really do, because you know better than anyone of what these young men are about to embark on and go through. And before we dive in, because you had the golden opportunity to work out with some of this year's top talent, let's take a trip down memory lane. I mentioned in my lead 2001 out of Oregon State, man. What was that energy like, knowing that you about to go to the next level?
Well, for me, it's a lot different than the guys we're going to discuss for sure. I honestly thought I would go in about the 3rd round. And so for me, the draft experience actually, man, was horrible, because you think one thing, you're kind of told one thing, and then something else completely happens and you're like, oh my God, like it's almost depressing. It pissed me off so much that I was angry. Like I wasn't even happy. Like I was so angry at how the process happened. But I mean, I was able, obviously, when I look back on it, like it still makes me upset, because I felt like I was better than where I was picked. And people, oh, you overachieved. No, I didn't overachieve. You guys evaluated me wrong. That's all that. When a guy does well, oh, he's just an overachiever. No, you just didn't do your evaluation the way you should have. And that's going to happen this draft as well. Some kids will get overdrafted because the evaluation was wrong, and kids will get underdrafted because the evaluation was wrong. And so for me, it doesn't matter where you get drafted. You got to go to the league and prove yourself.
And what was that like going into that Cincinnati Bengals locker room? I know you had a familiar teammate in Chad Ochocinco with you, but what was that like? Did you carry that chip on your shoulder during that rookie mini camp to let them know, like, you got this wrong? I love it. I see the face.
Yes.
Keep it $150.
True story. I got in a fight the first practice. I got in a fight. Dick LeBeau was the head coach. I was like, he just kept talking trash, dude. And I'm not going to say his name. So I popped him in his mouth and got in a fight. And no, true story also, like the rest of the year, guys would hold me and they'd be like, my bad, TJ, you good? But yes, I took it that first mini camp because it's a lot different. When I came out, it was the first 3 rounds, and then 4 through 7. Whereas now, the first round is a spectacle. I mean, it's an event. And
yes,
so
it is.
It was completely different, when I got drafted. But yes, I took it straight with me to the mini camp and got in a fight the first practice.
Speaking of it being an event, last year when we were all locked down on COVID, and we talked about this off camera, but you're talking about 15.6 million viewers watched the first round of the NFL draft with Commissioner Roger Goodell making those picks in his basement. What did you think about the way they handled that?
I mean, they did as best they could.
Mm-hmm.
Last year at this time, COVID was fresh. And so it was trying to find a way to allow these players and these young men to fulfill their dream. But the NFL is a business. And so as a business, we have to operate our business. And so they just had to find a way to navigate through it. And
Right.
I thought, like everyone else, it was fantastic. Very different, but very fantastic. seeing different coaches' style and taste, from Bill Belichick to Andy Reid, to Cliff Kingsbury. And so, we're kind of able to get a glimpse of a different way of doing things. And so this year, somewhat similar, but also different.
Mhm.
They are having players come down, but I really believe COVID has just opened up a lot of people's eyes on you can still get things done without having to all be in one space, one area, one city, one building.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of your former team, Joe Burrow, quarterback, unfortunately his season was cut short due to injury. What was your take on the way he did perform with the little time that you got a chance to watch him?
Fantastic. I thought he was fantastic. He was out here in California with us during the whole process, man, getting ready for the draft. And no lie, we were in the gym, and Joe's a quiet guy. He didn't speak to many people, no lie, man. Like, you would think Joe is antisocial because he does not speak to people. But we're in the gym. We had just finished on the field workout. They're in the gym working out. I would go in there and started talking here and there. Me and Joe did, but not a lot because he just wasn't a people person. He's not a people person, or at least he wasn't with me. And he was just like, yeah, I gotta get home, because again, it was the unknown. He was like, I gotta fly home tomorrow. I don't know if they're gonna allow people to fly. Last year at this time, it was, man, they're shutting everything down. You're not gonna be able to fly home. You can't do this. And so, I mean, literally, he was one of the last few to leave out of our draft eligible guys, because guys were leaving. And Joe stayed here to the last minute. And I wasn't surprised at all. He performed exactly how I thought he would, minus the injury. If he doesn't get injured, he's going to be the rookie of the year.
Right.
But I thought Joe was fantastic.
Well, to dive into that, because I know I want to talk about the guys that you see and really bring to light on the things that you're doing with these young prospects. But with that being said, and I'm jumping ahead, guys, but with the 5th pick in this year's draft, where do you think the Cincinnati Bengals should go?
I don't care about where I think they should go. Where they need to go is up front.
Okay.
It's very enticing to draft Kyle Pitts if he's not the 4th pick, or Jamar Chase. One of those two guys, I guarantee the Bengals are like, oh, I hope he falls to us. You'll get one of them. They need to draft a lineman. Whichever lineman they have rated the highest, whether it's Penei Sewell, the Rashawn Slater from Northwestern, one of those two guys needs to be a Cincinnati Bengal.
Okay.
You have your franchise quarterback. He got hurt because he took a hit because the offensive line. I mean, Joe was getting hit at a record pace as a rookie last year. They have to rectify that. They had to fix that situation. And so what I think, they need to draft an offensive lineman.
I remember in one of the NFL clips during the highlights, they were telling him, one of the referees was like, look, man, get down. It was like, he was almost like encouraging him. Yeah, he says, well, I'm going to slide. I'm going to start sliding. He was like, no, get down. It was like, I'm trying to help you, but I can't help you if you become a runner. You're going to take a hit. Wow.
Joe, he got beat up last year. Obviously, you tear your ACL, and it was because the offensive line, they just had a hard time. And so if I'm the Bengals organization and I'm a coach, I'm drafting an offensive lineman. And I know they signed one in free agency. The kid from Alabama was hurt his rookie year. Jonah Williams. You can never have enough good offensive linemen. I'd rather have more than I need than not have enough. And so you can get a playmaker in the 2nd round. I got a couple guys in mind for them if they need my expertise. All they got to do is holler at me.
That's what's up. Now, you mentioned Jamar Chase. Now, I'm jumping ahead because I want to know, I look at guys that I look at top talent that sat out last year due to COVID. Do you think that hurt their drop? Well, obviously it doesn't, because I'm seeing you mention him and a lot of other people, have him ranked very high, going number 3 to the Dolphins. But I wanted to know, do you think some of the guys who took the time to sit out, do you think that helped their stock?
Well, it just depends on who it is. Honestly, if I'm Jamar Chase, the uncertainty of how we're going to navigate through a football season, let's just be real. His stock was as high as it could be. He's not going to get drafted any higher. He's not going before Trevor Lawrence. So what's the best he could move up? A spot or two? Why risk the injury? Why risk the uncertainty of COVID and playing in that situation? Why even risk having a quarterback that is not as good as Joe Burrow, and then people's opinion of you go down? And so for Jamar, I thought it was a fantastic decision. Others that opted in and played well, like his teammate Terrace Marshall, he got off. He played well for a good portion of the season. He's like, all right, I'm opt out now. And so it just kind of depends on where were you in the process of, can I really improve my stock? And I believe like Jamar Chase not playing helped a guy like Devontae Smith out. From the aspect of it was like, oh, who's going to be the first receiver picked? Will it be Jamar Chase? Will it be Devontae Smith? I think it's a foregone conclusion that it's Jamar Chase. But had Jamar Chase played, would that even have been a conversation? Would Devontae Smith had won the Heisman? There's just so many variables that we just don't know.
Now, TJ, in your profession now, I know we can catch you on Fox Sports Net. But as far as, you get the opportunity to work out with these young talented men that are coming into this year's NFL, into the league. Can you talk about what you do and that you see these guys up close in person?
Well, I first of all, we get better as players. From the physical perspective, we improve a ton. I know that's cocky because I'm doing the teaching, but they improve a ton. I just teach them how to get open. Simple as that. The receivers, the tight ends, the class that I had last year, the receivers. You look at the top 5 receivers that were rookies last year. I trained 4 of them.
So wait a minute. So you had the TJ Houshmandzadeh camps, wide receiver camps?
I mean, I wouldn't call it the TJ Houshmandzadeh camps, but they are trained by me.
Oh, okay. You're training guys. Okay.
Yeah. I train, like, I don't do the 40 and the I do the receiver work. So, like, for instance, last year, I had Chase Claypool, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Pittman, and T. Higgins. And so the only top rookie receiver that I didn't have was Justin Jefferson. And so we just get better as players for sure. But we also get better mentally, as in socially, as people. And so it's not just football, man. Like we talk. Once I get to know them, we talk about things to avoid, certain situations to look out for over the course of your career. I mentor these kids. I talk to them during the season. We exchange messages during the season. They're out here training with me now this year after their rookie year. And so it's more of a mentorship, brothership that I want to see these dudes succeed. I don't want nothing from them, but ball the hell out on the football field and succeed as men in life. Simple.
With that being said, who did you see and who did you work out in this year's 2021 class?
Well, the one that's going to stand out, and had he worked with me or not, I would still have this opinion. Had he worked with me or not, he would still go very high in the draft, is Kyle Pitts. Dude is phenomenal. He's a basketball player playing football, but he's not a basketball player. He's a football player. I mean, if that makes any sense.
How's his hands?
Dude, everything about him that I saw was pretty damn good.
Wow.
He's big, he's quick, he can run, he runs routes like a receiver. I mean, he doesn't have any flaws. Yeah. Knock on wood, he stays healthy and the sky's the limit. But then I also worked with Pat Freiermuth from Penn State, fantastic. Hunter Long from Boston College, fantastic. Warren Jackson from Colorado State, that, this is kind of a comparison, but he's a poor man. He's not Plaxico Burress, but he's a poor man, Plaxico Burress. He's 6'6", 230. He doesn't have the straight line speed that Plaxico had, but he's smooth, big catch radius, obviously being 6'6". And then from South Dakota State, I work with Kay Johnson, smaller dude, but he's quick, can run. And so all those guys, man, just trying to get them better, simple.
Wow. Now, you also mentioned offline that you got a chance to work with Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. What do you like about these two top talent? Because, I'm looking right now at Charlie Casserly's mock draft, and he has those guys going 1 and 2.
Well, we out here in California, and prior to Trevor having surgery, we were on the field with him a few times because he trained with Jordan Palmer, and me and Jordan Palmer, we work together every year. And so, his quarterbacks and my receivers that we get together every single year, and it's fantastic. And Justin Fields is actually out here as well. And so between those three, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't want to have to make that decision. I mean, I know Trevor is going to be the first pick,
Mhm.
but Zach Wilson can play football. He was like he was born to throw the ball. It's like when the ball comes out of his hand, you're like, wait, did he just throw that? Because he's not big, his hands aren't big, and then you see him throw the ball, and you're like, whoa. And Justin Fields, I mean, all three of them dudes can play football. And so mentally, can they get better? Can they pre-snap process information? Post-snap, can they throw with anticipation? And more importantly than anything, can they get to the right team? I believe with the 49ers trading up for the Dolphins' third pick, if I'm a quarterback, I'm praying that's where I go. If I'm Trevor, Zach, or Justin Fields, I'm praying the 49ers draft me because I believe you'll have great success, great team, great head coach. The 49ers are an organization that it looks like they get it, and quarterbacks will succeed with playing under them.
From a defensive perspective, we know that you were the man, wide receiver, offense, wreaking havoc. But from a defense perspective, who's that young talent that has caught your attention that's heading into this year's draft?
Wow. I'll give you four guys off top. And I mean, you know what? I'll give you five. I'll give you four that are obvious, and then I'll give you one sleeper. Um, the obvious ones are Micah Parsons, just Penn State linebacker. Dude is huge. He can run. I mean, he can do it's unbelievable how big these dudes are and how fast they are. And then Jason Oweh, also from Penn State. Like, they were out here training in California, and I get on the field and I'm like, I'm from afar. I'm like, who are these dudes? These dudes run track? And I start getting closer. They're getting bigger and bigger. And they're like, nah, that's a DN linebacker. I was like, what? Literally run like receivers. I couldn't believe it. And from the cornerback position is J.C. Horn from South Carolina. Big, fast, physical, confident. Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech. The same thing I just said about J.C. Horn. Big, fast, physical, confident. And my sleeper defensively would probably be a defensive back from USC named Elijah Griffin. I don't know how old you are, but if you're close to my age, when we hear Elijah Griffin and we hear the Griffin, if it rings a bell, it's Warren G's son. Yeah,
Oh,
regular.
okay.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so just
Wow.
seeing him work during the pre-draft process, and really get out here and grind. I mean, he would be a sleeper. Um, Smart guy, highly competitive, great athleticism, just not a big dude.
Now, when you talk about you spoke earlier and you said something that really resonated. Like, yes, physical attributes on the field, but you know better than anyone that this is a mental game. It's a man's game, and you're walking into that locker room, and it's business. Whilst college athletic sports is a business too, but after work, you're not going home and you're on the sticks playing video games or trying to call shorty up. I mean, well, I take that back. You are, however, you still are with the clicker watching film and you're learning. Who did you see through your travels that is like ready to come in and is like on that level to really come in and be that impact player?
The sad part is you just don't know,
Mhm.
because when in some of these guys, regardless where you go first round, second round, you're a millionaire. And so people say, oh, money changed you. Well, number one, it should. I would hope so. Um, but it doesn't change you in that sense. All it does is reveal the character and reveal the person you've always wanted to be. And so you feel comfortable doing that. Hell, I'm gonna reveal myself, and now I got this bread. I'm gonna be me. And so you just don't know when they get that money how they're gonna act. You can talk to them, they can tell you this, but until they're in that situation, you just don't know. And so for me to sit here and say, "Oh, all the guys," I'd be lying to you. I don't know. I have to see once they get in a situation of having money, having great success, can you stay humble? Or having great failure, can you just put your head down and work and get better? And so you just don't know yet.
Got you. You mentioned your position as far as being, in the later rounds. Who are some of the guys, or have you really dug into the crates to see who those players would be come Saturday, possibly being picked up?
It sucks because me being a late round draft pick, you think I'd have some late round gems for you. But I'm like everybody else. I'm like a lot of the not so smart draft gurus. I'll throw myself in a not so smart mix as well.
I don't know about
But
that, TJ, man. You've been dropping some jewels right now. Seriously.
I'll give you 3 guys that I really like. But I think a lot of people like them. And the reason I'm gonna give you these 3 guys is because they're small. And they're not small in a sense of like they're just short. But man, they can play. And when we talked about the Bengals earlier, I thought of these 3 guys. The Bengals can get one of these 3 with their pick in the second round instead of Jamar Chase. Tutu Atwell from Louisville, Rondell Moore from Purdue, or Elijah Moore from Ole Miss. Those 3 dudes can flat out play football. They're just not big. And when I say big, they're just not tall, but they can't be stopped. And so those 3, they stick out to me when I started watching film of receivers, just the speed, the separation abilities that they can do. They just present problems for offense. Tyreek Hill has showed the NFL that I don't have to be tall, but I can cause a ton of problems. And they're in the mode of that. They're short, but they're thick. I mean, Rondell Moore, I believe, was like 5'7" and a half, 5'8", 180 pounds. I was extremely strong when I came out. I did 225 like 19, 20 times. This dude did it 23 times and ran a 4.2 and jump over 40 inches. So that kid can flat out play. He just needs to stay healthy. It's been hurt at Purdue. Tutu Atwell at Louisville was pretty much unstoppable. Who threw him the ball? And he was unstoppable, but with who throwing him the ball, nobody knows. Right. And then Elijah Moore, he had a really good quarterback in Matt Corral, who I coached in high school. But he was unstoppable. Just turn on Alabama tape. They couldn't stop him. Alabama stops everybody. They didn't stop him. And so those 3 guys, they stand out to me just because they're not big. And when I say big, I mean height. They're just shorter guys, but they can flat out play football.
It's exciting times, man. I love it, man. Just, working for 2 franchises, the New York Jets and the Cleveland Browns, having that opportunity. This is the time of year where you get a chance, to see the general manager's team come to light, and they put that team together. And with that being said, you look at the philosophy, you hear draft best available player, you build your team through the draft and you fill the holes through free agency, and you got to make sure you're under the salary cap. And of course you want a healthy team. But with filling those holes throughout free agency in this year's free agency class, who did you see move to a different team that will go in and fill and be an impact player?
I thought, looking at it, just off the top of my head, it's really today kind of sealed it for me was the Cleveland Browns. Getting Jadeveon Clowney, if he can stay healthy, him and Myles Garrett, I don't know what you do. They got John Johnson from the Rams and Troy Hill. If these dudes can stay healthy, the Rams gonna be tough because they get OBJ back. They're gonna be tough. And I root for the Bengals. I don't have a favorite team anymore, but I root for the Bengals. And just the fact that you look at Myles Garrett, like, how do we block him? If Jadeveon Clowney is healthy, he's gonna a lot of time have single coverage. They'll get Greedy Williams back from injury, and like I said, Odell. I like what the Cleveland Browns have done when we're talking free agency. They've done a fantastic job. I will, even Tampa Bay bringing their own guys back.
Right.
The Bucks have done a great job, but if we talk about bringing guys in from the outside, I would say the Cleveland Browns for sure.
Let's take a minute and let's really dive into that, because you played in that division. Now, I know everybody who's played it for their particular team feels like it's their toughest division. But when you think about that, and you look at the teams that are really getting better, the Cleveland Browns, the Cincinnati Bengals, and at one time you had to go through the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then it switched. You had to go through the Baltimore Ravens. But you look at that division. What are your thoughts in comparison to all the other divisions?
That division is arguably the toughest division to play in. It's for sure the most physical. Then you can argue that the NFC West is the toughest division as we look at it today, but the AFC North is not far behind. I mean, you look at it, three young quarterbacks, they all look to be the part. They have the goods in Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Baker Mayfield. The Steelers, Big Ben is kind of falling off. Um, but when that division plays defense, the Steelers, they're gonna play defense. The Ravens are gonna play defense. The Browns are now playing defense. Um, the Bengals need to get in that mix, and I believe they will. But quarterback wise, you go through every division. Can you name a division with the young talent at the quarterback position that's in AFC? You can't. And it's
Right.
the only one that you can go to. And you wouldn't say young, but it is the NFC West with Russell Wilson, Stafford, Kyler Murray, and whomever the 49ers draft. That's a division that's tough. But AFC North, year in and year out, is always a tough division.
Where do you see Justin Fields going? Do you see possibly the
Uh,
Pittsburgh Steelers picking him up?
oh no, I believe if he's there, I believe Pittsburgh would be happy to get him. But I honestly believe the 49ers are going to draft him with the third pick. I just don't believe you give up the capital that they gave up to go draft Mac Jones. I don't, no offense to Mac Jones, but I don't see the 49ers giving up multiple first round picks to draft Mac Jones when possibly they could have stayed at the position they were, stand pat and get him. And so I believe after Trevor and Zach go, they
Mhm.
wanted the option of let's get who we want. And I believe who they want is Justin Fields. It's been reported just too much that, oh, they want Mac Jones. I just find that hard to believe that we know the top three picks in the draft weeks away. I don't get that.
Last year we saw the I wouldn't say surplus, but you saw it was heavy on offensive linemen, deep. What position do you see a lot of depth at in this year's draft?
Well, first round is quarterbacks, but it's the receiver position.
Okay.
The receiver position this year is loaded. I mean, you're going to get first round guys in the second round, at least in my opinion, especially if you evaluate the correct way and you go get the right guys. I mean, there could possibly be three in the top 12 with
Mm.
Chase, Waddell, and Smith. Um, their receiver classes, guys are just coming into college more refined, more skilled. Um, but it would probably be on the offensive side of the ball, the quarterback and receiver position. Quarterback being more top heavy, receiver talent is spread out.
With that statement you just made, do you find that's because of the programs that these young men are a part of, and then working with talent like yourself and helping to develop these guys, that they're coming in NFL ready?
I believe the evolution of 7-on-7 guys are specializing just in football. Guys they don't even play basketball anymore. Like, growing up, we played every sport. These
Mhm.
dudes play football their entire life. They don't play other sports. Um, Good from a football perspective, bad from an overall athletic development perspective, but it helps them because they just focus on one sport for such a long period of time. That, and they also have access to the trainers like myself at an earlier age, and the skill level is just through the roof.
You got to take us in the locker room, TJ. I had to ask this question because it just came to my heart and off the top of my head. And when I think about, when you talked about just now, I'm saying that 7-on-7 and guys are playing, year round. But I want to talk about the characteristics of a California wide receiver opposed to a Texas wide receiver and opposed to, of course, a Florida wide receiver. When you step into that locker room, I guess, who you going to hear first in that little receiver area out of those three states?
The Florida guys and the California guys going to do the most talking. But it really doesn't matter, man. They got great trainers in Florida, great trainers in Texas, and we have great trainers in California. The talent is remarkable, man. It's not just those states.
Right.
Those guys, those are the warm weather states where guys can literally go at it year round. But the Florida guys and the California guys are going to do a lot of talking for sure. But it's really, man, when you get to the league, it's landing with a good team, good system, good quarterback, great group of coaches that can develop you and put you in positions to be successful.
Hey, man, before we let you go, man, we're here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And, who were some of the Hall of Famers that you grew up watching and you looked up to and modeled your game after?
I wouldn't say, honestly, I didn't play a ton of sports growing up until my last year in high school, but I was a Cowboy fan growing up. And so being a Cowboy fan, I was a fan of Mike Irvin, Deion, all the Cowboys. So if you're a Cowboy, I was a fan. But I didn't really, I wasn't like the kids were discussing. Football wasn't a realistic future from a livelihood perspective for me in my late teens. It just wasn't realistic. And so I didn't really have guys that are like, oh, I want to do just what I didn't have that. But I've always loved the game of football, so I've always watched it. But as far as me looking at guys, I didn't have that.
Now, did you ever play in the Hall of Fame game when you guys came down to Canton and played here? No.
Never. I played the majority of my career with the Bengals. The Hall of Fame hates on the Bengals, man. They don't even want to put the guys in the Hall of Fame. Tell them that Willie Anderson should be in the Hall of Fame.
No, I will, but I will say our archivist, TJ, John Kendall is a huge Cincinnati Bengals fan. And on behalf of him,
I don't know how Willie Anderson is the best, right? We used to go 7-step drop with no chip, no help. And how Willie Anderson can get in the Hall of Fame is beyond me. Chad is one of the best receivers to ever play football. He'll never get in, but if you base it off talent, that's what the Hall of Fame is based. He should get in there, but he won't. So
what were your thoughts on that? I got to ask you about that, because what were your thoughts on when he had his jacket, his Hall of Fame, when he had his Hall of Fame jacket made and he used that as part of a celebration?
He was on his way. Had we won more games and won some games in the playoffs, he was on his way. But
Coach didn't like that. I remember Coach talking about that.
The Hall of Fame is not about a year or two. It's your totality of your career, the entirety of your career, and you have to be consistent every year. For a 5-year stretch, Chad was a top 3 receiver in the league, but you got to be dominant pretty much your entire career. The Hall of Fame is the best of the best. It's not some of the best. It's the best of the best. And so you got to fit that criteria throughout your career.
Well, we would love to have you and your family come here, man, and host you guys and have a tour and walk through the halls and visit the bus gallery and just, spend the day here in Canton anytime you make it back to Ohio.
I appreciate it, man. I keep that in mind. Thank you.
Yeah, man. And we want to thank you for joining us right here on The Mission, man. And it's just so great to hear all the phenomenal work that you're doing with these young men and building the brand and keeping the integrity of the National Football League. We salute you, man.
Jameer, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me, brother.